everybody. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for Julia and the team for the amazing organization. I'm Luka Zivkovic. As you can hear from my accent, I'm half French. As you can see from my name, I'm half Croatian. I'm one of the co-founders of bonapp, which is the first mobile application helping food businesses reduce food waste in Central and Eastern Europe. I'm 34 years old next week. I'm also an avid traveler. I've been to 67 countries, and I think it's very important to tell how travel has been shaped also my entrepreneurial journey. So I will give you a bit of background about my relatives. I think that's very important because they really influence who I am today. First of all, my mother, the French, always had a stable job, always looked at stability in the whole household. On the other hand, my father has been to 120 countries. He was a mechanical engineer in cargo ships in Africa, in Asia. He also escaped military service during socialist Yugoslavia. So he was the complete opposite of my mother. He was the risk taker. And I think it's very important to mention how both basically influenced me in a way or another. My father gave me the concept of basically be able to dream and not be scared of basically pursue my dreams. But on the other hand, my mother showed me how to assess all the risk I'm taking to make sure I'm doing the right decision. So, as I told you already, I've been to 60 plus countries, and some of the countries I've been are, let's say, countries that no one would recommend. I also, early on, moved abroad. I lived in Estonia, in the UK, in Germany, and now here in Romania. And this is, I think, something that basically shaped, like that my parents brought in order to shape me, to basically take my own decisions and discover what's around me. Why did I do all these changes, all these moves in my life? Well, it's very simple. I have two dreams, and I have the feeling I'm basically completing both dreams at the same time. So the first dream is that I've been always curious, and I always wanted to learn more and more, especially from other people and other cultures. And what is very important is that what we consider being normal might not be normal for other people. And here, probably many of you come also from multicultural backgrounds, and you can mention a lot of examples of things that might be considered normal in Romania, but not normal in the country where you're originally from. So I will give three very random examples that come from experience that I had in the countries I lived. Let's start with Germany. So when I lived in Germany, I realized that in the bathroom, in restaurants and bars, you had a sign for men to sit down when they urinate. This is something I never saw anywhere else in the world, and that was very surprising for me. And then when I went back to my apartment, I had some roommates, and they were Germans, and I realized they were actually doing the same thing. So I had a quick chat with them, like, hey, why are you doing this? Like, no one else does it in the world. Like, men stand, like, that's how we do things. And they told me, hey, look, first, it's much cleaner for the person that's basically coming after you, like it doesn't splash anywhere. And second, it's also more convenient because you can basically stay on your phone and whatever, read stuff and so on and so forth. Then a second example is actually about Romania. No one here leaves their backpack or their bag on the floor. So I know there is some superstition here that apparently if you put your bag on the floor, money flows away. But French people always keep their bag like anywhere. Like you come, you leave it on the floor, we don't care. But actually, it's also not very clean. And I know French may have a reputation of not being the cleanest people in the world, but so I'm trying to learn from these things in order to get to become a better person and learn from other cultures. Now, I want to talk about the second dream. The second dream is always building impactful stuff for society. So I think it started at a very young age. When you were a child, you play with your Lego, you build stuff, it's funny, and you show to your parents, hey, look at what I've done. Then when you go to middle school, primary school, you start organizing some small events for your classroom, for your friends, you do your birthdays and stuff. Then when you go to, when you become a student, you do like bigger parties, you bring all the university, and you like to give stuff to the community. That's what I've been always doing. And then as I grew up, I realized that because I like doing stuff for the community, I should basically contribute to do something good for the community. And I've been, in the past 5-6 years, really driven by building something that has or a social or an environmental impact for the world I live in. Some people are looking for, their dream is money, some other people is power, but on my side, I'm really convinced that it's basically putting my brain into work in order to make good for the society and the world I live in. However, I think what is important is all the barriers that people around you might put to prevent you from doing stuff. So when I talk about I will come back to my trips if you don't mind. So if I come to my trips, when I first went to the Middle East, for example, I have a friend who asked me, "Are you crazy? There is a war there." And I'm pretty good in geopolitics, and I know usually what's happening in the world, and I knew there was no war in that country for more than 30 years. So, I realized that basically people's perception can really influence the decision they're making. Then another example was actually to a trip to Eastern Europe, where other friends told me, "Oh, but people may steal stuff from you or kidnap you, it's dangerous there." And as far as I know, most Eastern European countries are the safest places I've been, So people's perception really have a huge impact on basically what you might do as a person. So as I realized that such things could happen from people, I realized to step back a little bit and have a look at, okay, can I take some decisions that will make me make the right choices? So first of all, I think what is very important is check the news, and then you will know what's actually going on in the country. Of course, I'm mentioning trusted sources. I know there is a lot of misinformation going on right now in the world, so just to be sure you check news from actual real newspapers or sources. Second of all, check data. You have a lot of sources online about stuff like crime rates or any level of violence that may happen in the world and so on and so forth. So use that to know that that the opinion you might get from someone is actually true or not. Third point, identify, in case you see that the data is not so good, identify what are the risks, who is the target group. In some places, the target group might be just a very, a minority in a way or another, so you might not be part of it, so technically there should not be any risk for you. Or in the case that you may be eventually part of that target group, you can take some safety measures to prevent that to happen. Just to give you a couple of examples, some countries might, target tourists, for example, and you go to a certain place as a tourist, and you might realize that basically it's better to take an Airbnb than a hotel because the hotel may be the target. Or for example, you might have some neighborhoods that you want to avoid after a certain hour because it's riskier. And obviously, I think it's also important to follow local customs, respect culture, traditions, and so on and so forth. So I think these are basically what helped me take some decisions in where to travel or not to travel. And now what is important is that how do I apply this not only for my travels, but also to my life and especially to my career. So before being an entrepreneur, I had a corporate job. It was very nice, very comfortable. But I felt at some point I was lacking purpose. I was not growing as much as I wanted, and so on and so forth. So I've decided to be an entrepreneur. And here again, guess what? People told me, "Are you crazy? What if you fail? If you put your savings, you will be poor. How will you handle that?" And this is basically the narrative that many people, unfortunately, around you are bringing up that will make you doubt again. And, I basically applied the same narrative of assessing basically all the risk that may cause to take such a basically strong decision in my career life. And I will share you just the pros and cons and why I basically decided to become an entrepreneur. So first of all, the pros. Having purpose and a mission, that's essential to me, and to come back at what I said earlier is one of my dreams. Second of all, I can work with the people I choose to work with. And third of all, I have all the freedom possible to make the moves that I want if things don't go as expected. And what are the cons? Like, okay, maybe some financial pressure. I had to put all my savings to make my business work. Okay, but what is the worst case scenario that can happen? You fail, and if you fail, you're poor for 1 month, for 2. You need to ask, what, 500 euros to your parents or friends to pay your rent? You will have to eat pasta for 1 month? But honestly, eating pasta for 1 month, is it that bad that it will make you prevent or realize your dream? So, you know, for me it was just extremely simple. I'm like, okay, the worst case that can happen to me is actually a pretty okay situation. And the pros are so important that I can learn so much and do so much things that is just a no-brainer for me. So basically, just to conclude, I think it's important for you to be aware of one thing. Having fears and doubts, it's normal, it's human, and you should not be ashamed of that. However, your dreams are much more important, and you need to make sure that each time you have some fears or doubts about a specific dream, you're able to do your self-assessment of what is the actual worst-case scenario that makes you doubt about realizing one of your dreams. And once you have done that, you should be able to take the right decision and make sure that your dreams will basically come true. As a last sentence, I want to add that one more time, I think I became the person that I am today thanks mainly to my parents. I always felt free to do the decisions that I wanted, but I think it's only after certain years that you realize the huge impact they had in your life in order to make you become who you are. I never felt pressure. I never felt they told me to do whatever they wanted me to do. I did everything on my own, but I would not have done it if I didn't have them on my background to support me since I was born. Thanks a lot for having me. It was a pleasure.